you were at the business meeting last night, you heard me say that we dragged Mike in at the last minute to our Legends versus students team, and then he carried us. So he obviously still has everything, especially macro. You're right, I didn't realize that. And you're right, most of us aren't macro people, so that's always impresses me. Mike has spent time working with organizations to help form policy, has contributed a lot, excuse me, both to policy and to graduate, undergraduate teaching, all aspects. He is past president of SAEA and current journal editor of the JAAE. And with that, I turn it over.
Thanks, Lisa. And I'm just as organized as Stephen is. As my students know, all my notes are always typed and my lectures are always the same. And so, so I guess there are quite a few people who know me in this audience. But anyway, I thank the nominators for this award. I know a lot of people who are more deserving of me for this honor and were never nominated. So thanks to those nominators, the people who wrote the letters, the people who evaluated them, the probably voluminous materials that I usually sort through pretty quickly if I'm on such a committee. So I thank you for that. I thank my wife. We've split duties, and so I've been able to do academic things, and she was there raising children, 2 kids, and now we've got grandkids and all that. So the division of responsibilities has been good and supportive. I thank the University of Kentucky. I've been there over 40 years, and it's been a great place for me. They've allowed a lot of independence. They've allowed, if I was to fail, it was my own fault, basically. So when I got there many years ago, they stressed that you had to be a self-starter, you had to be independent, you had to make your own program and go with it, and then that's what you did. And nobody came down and told me what to do, generally. We used to have these times when you had a summer assignment that the dean would come up with, and typically involved agricultural economics, so sometimes I was not so fortunate and got involved with that. But anyway, so colleagues, gosh, all the colleagues that I've had, not only in the department, but outside to work with. So many close friends and former students and so on. So it's been a great 40 years, and it's wonderful to have an opportunity to work in a job that you really love. Been blessed, thank God. In my Sunday school class one time they asked, well, if you were to have a job, what would be the perfect job for you? And my wife and I looked at, and professor was the perfect job for me. So I'm thankful that somehow I got into that position, not a great planner, and sort of kept going forward, landed in a place, and so it's been great. I've had the opportunity to work with 37 PhD students that I've been major professor, work from all over the world. I keep up with most of them. And that relationship that Stephen talked about is really, really not only important to the student, but it's also important to the professor. I've hosted 29 different international scholars, and some of those have been rather productive, and some of those have been doing other things that I never really discovered, but nonetheless, it was fun to get to know them, and sometimes I even get to go back and see them in their own environment. So I've had the opportunity, and you'll see, here I'm going to get into my career, which is very different than Stephen's, and I'm sure different than John's, because I've sort of had this wayward journey that's led me into different things. I've been at the university all over Kentucky all that time, but my responsibilities at the university has varied quite a bit over the years. So I've had the opportunity to work professionally in 42 different countries, and then attend conferences in 9 more. So I've been in, well, I thought I was, and when I talk about my career, I thought I was going to be able to celebrate the Chiefs' victory and tell you when I was a grade school kid playing in the front yard and learned that the Chiefs were coming to Kansas City from Texas. I go back that far, and then the first game in Arrowhead Stadium when I attended and the Jets went, it seemed like maybe lower than the top of the stands. But I can't do that, I guess, since then. But maybe next year. Iowa State, I was there. When the job market was around in John, we sort of, in 1978, you sort of said, well, this is when I'm going to interview, and you had, 4 to 6 interviews, and you made a decision. If you didn't like what offers you got, you would go ahead and interview again. I mean, there were that many jobs. Bill, there were that many jobs available. And in a way, not only do I have the golden career, but I kind of got into it at the sweet spot of things too, because things have never been that good since with respect to jobs and the opportunity to find really what you wanted. So in terms of career, I'm not sure that mine is much of a model for anybody to follow, because I'm not a planner particularly. Some may say I lacked focus and didn't plan very well, but one thing I did well was I always kept a link in the department. I always kept an academic link, whether it be certainly teaching and research, but I would have partial appointments around campus, but always had that opportunity, with a partial appointment back in agricultural economics, to work with students and do research. Well, my wife grew up in Virginia, and when I interviewed in Lexington, the department chair, future department chair, said, well, we knew we had you as soon as we looked at Kansas and Virginia, and we were right in the middle. And he was right. And I wasn't one of those people who said, oh, well, I'll go to Lexington and spend 2 years there and go elsewhere. I wasn't like that. I didn't really think about that. I just thought about doing what I was doing and sort of putting together a program of some kind, and then go forward from that. And I did want to put together my program. I see a lot of assistant professors now trying to work with all these graduate students as soon as they get in. I didn't work with graduate students when I was an assistant professor. I worked on my own stuff and got things published and sort of established my program and went forward from there. And I think I understood a little bit more of what was going on then. And of course, at that point in my career, I was very technical in nature with the disciplinary focus, working with AEC colleagues in our department, not only the research people, but also the extension people to get ideas and things. And Jeff mentioned yesterday grain marketing. I was on a grain marketing regional research committee because one of the things you did was to start looking for, we live in a much different profession now. You started looking for people who would write letters about your promotion right away, and so regional committees were ways to do that. And so that's how I met lots of people, many of whom are retired now. But anyway, it was a great group. But I worked in the marketing area, though my dissertation was on trade. Slowly over time, I worked in the trade, publishing more, doing research more, developing a course, developing a textbook, and then started working with graduate students. And really, the joy of my career has been working with graduate students over the years. I don't have any great discovery. There's no model named after me, or at least if there is a model named after me, it's some other MikeReed, and I get their emails every once in a while, by the way. But it's really the input and maybe the little emphasis that I've used in all those graduate students, and then I take credit for everything they do after that. See? So I take solace in that, being the investment and helping them realize their own potential. And a lot of them have done very, very well. But then, in about 10 years into my career, I worked with a congressional person at a senator one of our senators who was really young then and is still around now. He's a little bit notorious, and so we developed a proposal for what was called a trade center day. So we got money from Congress to perform trade analysis and do extension and education programs in the the Ohio Valley area. That would be Kentucky and the surrounding areas. Well, of course, then you're moving into, and I was just turning to be a full professor then, you're moving into a little bit different program than what your traditional teaching research program would be. So we'd have conferences around, we would do research, we would travel around, and there was a staff of about 12 people that I hired. Well, but I still kept my focus, a little bit of focus in the department. Well, happened to be in the same building then where the Office of International Affairs was, which is now called the International Center, which was headed by two agricultural economists. They decided to retire, and then they looked around the university for, well, who's going to do basically this international work, which housed some of the administrative functions that you're familiar with at the university, which would be education abroad, international student advising, immigration, and so on, but also had a projects area. And so as director, my focus was to be on projects. And so for 4 years, I worked in that office as the director of an office that had 19 employees, things, but still keeping a foot in agricultural economics, doing research and publishing. So I was part-time director, had 2 offices, don't recommend it at all. And finally decided that, after 3 years, I didn't like that. And 3 years being out of full-time research is difficult. So I decided to go back, and my buddy, the dean then, when I come back, says, well, why don't you do international programs for agriculture? So since 1998, I've been international programs for agriculture. And fortunately, all of the deans either didn't know how to deal with me or something, but it was always sort of, well, Mike, go ahead and do whatever you want to do in that, and it'll be fine. So it wasn't like it would be at Purdue or A&M or something like that, where they would have a bottom line of, well, you brought in $5 million, we really want 7, and so please do that. It was more, you've got to do these things, do them as best you can, and see what happens. And so still being able to keep my foot in the department, but then took more of a development focus almost. And so I've had the opportunity to do consulting and project work all over the place as a trade or policy person. And so that's been fun too. All doing this, what I love to do. So working with all those people, being director of graduate studies, a total of 14 years, I think, in agricultural economics. So it's been a great fun. So now you sort of know a little bit about my career that you might not have known about. Now the things to consider. Now I'm past the career. What highlights do you have? Well, don't look for much from me. I think graduate students, if you're getting a PhD, you better like to read, write, and speak. As a professor, it's a great job. Generally, nobody's going to come up and tell you you have to do this and this and this and this. But if you don't like being a professor, it's your own fault. You should know going in, this is what the professor does. The professor publishes, there are scholars, and if you don't, but you have a wide opportunity of doing that. You can focus on teaching undergraduates, you can focus on graduate students, you can focus on very disciplinary-oriented research. Now you've got so many journals that are interdisciplinary journals. You can do that. But you gotta do that. You can talk to people outside the university, find own groups. All that is good. So you have no excuse for not liking what you do. But you have to understand that that's what you're getting into. And you can go through the travails that Stephen has gone through, and even all the rest of us have gone through. But if you don't want to do that, then you're in the wrong business. So, and it's great freedom too. Maybe too much freedom sometimes. But you gotta love the job. So know what you're getting into. Assistant professors, establish your career first. Put a little distance between you and graduate school so that you get a little seasoned, you understand what it is like, how you develop your own style. Unfortunately, I think our departments are smaller now than they used to be. When I
Shortly after I arrived at Kentucky, there were 32 faculty members there, and a lot of them were very senior people. So as an assistant professor, I didn't talk at faculty meetings, I didn't advise graduate students, I didn't get involved in all sorts of things. And it was to my benefit that I didn't have to. Now, we have, I don't know, how many do we have, Barry? 23, something like that?
20, closer to 20.
Or 20? And so all the work of the department has to be shouldered on all sorts of people. So I know you can't go back to the good old days when I started, but you as an assistant professor need, or even an associate professor, need to shield yourself as much as you can to establish your career and go forward from that. There are colleagues, and very well-known colleagues, who established a more solid research in a very narrow area. It was really very successful because they were able to stay away from all those other activities that had to go on from the department level that didn't have to be done by assistant professors. So be as careful as you can. And then for full professors, be careful about administrative appointments. I mean, it's once you get going, then you get in the track and you either go on that track or then you worry about, well, what am I going to do afterwards, you see? I'm 46 years, I think this is a scenario, I'm not 46 years old. Surprise. I'm 52. Great, I'm losing credibility, aren't I? But anyway, if you're 46 and you become the department chair, I mean, where do you jump off after that? 4 years, or at our university, 6 years? You jump back into academia? I don't know. If you're a bench scientist, they close up your lab and you don't have anything to go back on. So you have to be careful about that. Be careful about what your track is. Always keep your foot in the real core of, I would say, unless you're really committed to kind of move up that track into the dead zone of department chair and then associate dean and dean and be careful. I never did that, and I'm glad I never did. Though I did these little things that I liked doing, but I could also do research and consulting and other things associated with it. Now, for the future of Ag Econ, which was part of the charge, I guess, I am clueless, let me tell you. It's a different game. But money, you know, it's so different now. Money has always dictated a lot, but outside money dictates everything now, which is a shame. You know, if you work at a land-grant university, whether or not it's is it a public university? Well, it's increasingly losing its publicness. My university, about 6 to 8% of its money comes from the state. That's not very public. It wasn't too long ago that it was around 18%. We've had a budget cut every year since 2008. And the uniqueness of agriculture. Now, I wondered about this shortly after my entry into the profession as a professor, but how long is agriculture going to be unique, not only with respect to research, but also with respect to funding sources? So, in that regard, you might, as a portfolio, think about how you publish too, just in case you have something like Washington State happen and you lose your Ag Econ department. Well, can you be in an Econ department? How could I fit in? With the whole idea that, 40 years, for me, I mean, you might not stay in the profession for 40 years, but you might. In 40 years, the profession is going to change a whole lot between what it is now. What it will be, I don't really know. But if I were in your shoes and waiting for 40 years, I'd sort of position myself so that I have enough options as to, if it changes this way, I can do that. If it changes that way, I can do that. And then I harken back to what Stephen said, because most of the stuff that Stephen said was basic information, basic types of conceptual tools, empirical tools that you can use no matter how the profession goes. And so as people like Stephen that can slay and work in all sorts of areas. So maybe that's a little advice too. Well, I've gone on. I'm sure that Jeff is a little bit heated under the collar. I probably went on longer than I should have, but I really do appreciate not only the opportunity to speak with you, but I appreciate this association. I mean, it's really a great group of people that go all the way from those undergraduates that seem so enthusiastic and especially at the party last night, they were enthusiastic, by the way. Your liquor bill might be a little high. But anyway, all the way to the people that I've known for so many years. So it was nice to address you, and I thank you for the award.